Hello everyone, this is KoTH giving you a shoutcast and a game between Hyper Walcott versus an unknown Korean player. This is going to be a Protoss versus Protoss, and this is taken from the same site that I had the previous clan war. And I'm not sure if this is a clan war anymore or more of the King of the Hill style, but if it is a clan war King of the Hill style game, then hopefully we guys will be able to watch it together and figure out what's going on in this matchup. The games were such high quality that I thought I would try to continue to cast even more of these, as there seems to be a little bit of a lull in terms of replays that are currently out there. Now, red versus blue on what I believe to be Daybreak. Daybreak, one of those maps, only 2 spawning locations, Xel'Naga Tower surrounded by a lot of vents, and easy to establish natural expansion, but a little bit more difficult to establish a third. There is also an expansion that goes towards your opponent that has a rich Vespene Geyser. If you want to try to utilize that, it is a little bit more difficult to defend though, but there are expansions galore. This is a Protoss versus Protoss mirror match, and with a Protoss versus Protoss mirror match, you want to see what exactly the players are building and their overall timing. It looks like it is going to be a true mirror match with, I believe, red with just a slight advantage over blue, as both players now taking a look, making sure that there are no proxy gateway strategies or shenanigans coming into play as they now move about to scout. There is a set of destructible rocks over here, semi making your ramp a little bit smaller as these units now do make their way out. One of the things that I gotta say I liked about the Heart of the Swarm, some of the replay footage, was the ability to suddenly block off your ramp, and that was something that I thought was going to be really nice in Heart of the Swarm. What you could do was there would be rocks up here, and then you could shoot down a pillar and have the rocks actually land on your ramp and then block your opponent that way. So that will be a nice new interesting strategy when Heart of the Swarm does finally release. Both players now coming in with their probes, taking a good look around and pretty much scouting each other. They know exactly what the other player has based upon the timing, because they have the same exact build. Both players now training up Zealots, and this mirror match will come down to micro, as both players are not really deviating from that standard build. We do see a gas coming in from Hyper Walcott finally, and are we getting the second gas down over here? No second gas. Instead, opting to get a little bit more minerals right now, and now he should be able to start up that Stalker in just a little bit more time, as we now see another gateway being added. So an additional gateway by the red Protoss player. Meanwhile, Hyper Walcott opting to go for an assimilator, and we'll see how this all works out. Hyper Walcott now getting in some additional pylons, needs to harvest some additional gas as well to make sure that he does have superior Stalker numbers, as a probe hangs on by this Xel'Naga Tower here, as a probe now retreats all the way back home. Actually, no, deciding not to retreat, instead going off to the north, and Hyper Walcott may be trying to set up perhaps a proxy pylon down in this direction or down in this location. We'll see where this probe finally does head off to, as a Stalker and Zealot now taking a look around on the inside of the base. Double Stalkers now being trained by red. Meanwhile, Walcott getting 2 additional gateways. So I believe Walcott will be able to start warping in right as that warp gate tech completes, and we'll see who comes out ahead. Proxy pylon now being set up over here. This one probe looks like it will get taken down. Down it goes by that scouting Stalker. And now with 2 additional gateways while training up some Stalkers the old-fashioned way, it looks like he's going to be able to hold that location here. Oh, the Stalkers and the Zealot does find this pylon right as it completes, not allowing the red Protoss player to cancel it, and this is going to be a very, very heavy loss. Losing this pylon here means that he will be supply blocked for a little while longer, and he's not going to be able to warp in units. You do see that there is one Stalker down over here, the Stalker trying to run up the ramp. It looks like it will be able to do exactly that, as a Zealot now down over here. That's not a good place for that Zealot to be. 2 Zealots, 2 Stalkers versus 3 Stalkers and a Zealot. The Stalker now making its way up the ramp. We do see Zealots and now a Sentry being added, as this Zealot, if it tries to walk up that ramp, is going to have a very, very bad day. No force field though. It could have used a force field to try to trap that Zealot, but not really worth it in the long run, as he wants to make sure to maximize that damage. Now, we are going into the Phoenix, and a very interesting play by Hyper, as Hyper is going to be able to Graviton Beam units. Now, also with the superior movement speed on these Phoenixes, he may actually be able to start harassing the probe line back at home, but he will have to deal with blinking Stalkers. Those Stalkers move incredibly fast, able to go up and down ramps, and with that, may be able to shoot down a couple of these Phoenixes. The Phoenixes, however, are light mechanical units, so they do not take any bonus damage from those Stalkers. Harvester count 26 compared to 24 now. Both sides going past that 20 point. They know that they cannot engage just quite yet, as we are now going into a third Phoenix. So 3 Phoenixes now being added to this group, as now we are also getting some pylons on the ramp, and this is a little bit dangerous for Hyper, as Hyper may end up losing these pylons if he's not careful. Anything that gives sight up onto the high ground will allow these pylons to get taken down very easily. And oh, there is a Stalker. The Stalker, I do not believe, saw the Phoenixes at all. If it did see the Phoenixes, something may have happened, as the Phoenixes now make their way across the middle of the map. The probe is going to spot this, and now all the Stalkers need to just run all the way back home, as those Phoenixes are going to pick up the probe there, take that down, and now we are going to have an engagement. Stalkers now making their way up the main portion of this ramp here. This Nexus most likely will get cancelled, but we do see that the Phoenixes are going after probes right now, simply flying around, more Stalkers being warped in back at home, as that means that this front number of units is not going to be nearly as heavy. Stalkers now apparently trying to push their way forward. Oh, one Phoenix taking a lot of damage, already down to about half life, as a Zealot now makes its way too far in, canceling that Nexus rather quickly, and that Zealot needs to back off as well. One Observer up on the high ground. That pylon is a bit in trouble. Like I mentioned, Hyper is going to be supply blocked. There you go, 55 over 50, as the Stalkers blink away. Not quite sure why they blinked away, revealing their tech path and the fact that it was already completed. An Immortal now being added to this group, and that Immortal is still getting danced and pushed around just a little bit, as it is a little bit slower than the rest of those units. The Stalkers the same speed as those Zealots, as a second Immortal finally being added here. Taking a look at the army composition, slightly larger for Hyper, 27 probes though compared to 30, as we now see a Nexus being added over here at the main natural expansion. Stalkers quickly blinking away once more, and the Observer being very just smart about it, trying to make sure that it does not get sniped down by another Observer that will reveal it in just a moment. You can now see an Immortal now being added here, so 2 Immortals and now 4 Phoenixes in the air, just still flying around, not really doing much of anything. You can see that the robotics facility about to complete. The Phoenix is staying very, very close. Should be able to hunt down this Observer the moment it is out. And what is going to be happening here? That is the question. Waiting for the Observer. It is finally out. Down goes the Observer of Red. And now Red will be forced to pull back just a little bit. Harvester count 28 compared to 33. Probe production has slowed down. We are going into another Immortal and 3 more Stalkers, as a Nexus may be added. No, this is going to be a proxy pylon Nexus, as we are now going to be engaging here. The Nexus has not been warped in as of yet, and if he just continues to warp in more and more units, he may have a much larger standing army, and that looks like exactly what Hyper is going to try to do. So if the Korean Protoss player here, the red Protoss player, is able to fend off this attack, he will be in a much better position in the mid game, as he'll have a stronger economy, and all we can really hope for, or Hyper can really hope for, is to deal a lot of damage and make the red Protoss player suffer by not building up a large enough army. 86 compared to 84 right now, but army composition's much larger for the blue Protoss player. Now more Stalkers are being engaged over here, and now in come the Phoenixes. The Phoenixes need to back off, and now one Phoenix does get taken down, but the blink has already been used. The Phoenixes need to back away, and that was not a good use at all, as now you can see that one Stalker is left. Is it going to perhaps get Graviton beamed? No, the Stalkers are just eating through all the Phoenixes, and Hyper is not doing too well. He invested very heavily into those Phoenixes, and those Phoenixes have done absolutely nothing for him throughout this matchup. Stalkers now pushing their way through once more. We do have 3 Immortals, and the Immortals are really what is scary about this group of units. The Archon, however, is not an armored unit, as the Phoenix once again flies straight into a group and now gets taken down by a fair amount of Stalkers, but Hyper still has a rather large army. He doesn't have the Phoenixes, though. He's not going to be able to Graviton Beam the Sentries, the Stalkers, or the Zealots any longer to try to neutralize their DPS. How is this all going to work as we now see Hyper warping in a proxy pylon here to try to push up this ramp? Now, the Stalkers are going to engage. No, the Stalkers can't engage just quite yet. The Zealots in position. We are going to get some more sentries. 1 sentry, 2 sentries now being added. 1 observer in this group, and that is going to be a very critical observer, offering sight up onto the high ground. Zealots now warping in, as we are going to see the Immortals perhaps try to push the Zealots. There's the force field. There's the engagement. A Guardian Shield quickly coming up. Stalkers now trying to blink away as the Stalkers are just continuing to push here. This is looking very, very odd as both sides have some force fields. 1 Immortal will get taken out. No, not taken out. And that range of 6 just dealing a lot of damage, taking down an Archon instead, as the Immortals are just simply pushing their way up this ramp as the Stalkers are now being forced to blink back. This is not good for the Red Protoss player. The Red Protoss player is now down to a much smaller army as the Forge is going to get destroyed here. Probes coming off the mineral line. Force fields not being used. Stalkers now trying to blink in, going after a couple of the Immortals. The Immortals should be focusing onto the Stalkers, finally doing so, but the Stalkers have already destroyed 2 of the Immortals. The last Immortal does get taken down, as we now see it is Stalkers against Stalkers and Zealots. The Zealots trying to chase after those units there. I believe Hyper has a slight advantage in terms of numbers, and now finally backing off as reinforcements will be coming in. 11 Stalkers versus 5 Stalkers and 3 Zealots. That is not a good engagement. The Zealots getting overzealous now, trying to push their way in. Stalkers getting picked apart. Both sides losing a critical number of units as the Zealots perhaps overstaying their welcome and now being forced to pull back. Stalkers once again peeling away. Red should be able to win this if he has superior Stalker micro, but it looks like, yes, he is going to be able to fend off this attack here, as the lower hit point Stalkers are still pulling back slowly but surely, as that Stalker now finally running all the way back and now going to re-engage, and there is the GG by Hyper Walcott. So Hyper Walcott unable to match up against the superior micro of the Red Protoss player. He had a fairly good engagement at the beginning, but the superior economy, the faster reinforcements, simply too much, as Hyper Walcott says GG. Thanks for watching. Thanks for listening. We will see another game with the same Red Protoss player in Game 2.